The emojis, all the emojis, all the time. Yeah, we're live. It is 12:23. Today we are going to talk in the afternoon. Today we're going to talk about turbo kits, cheap turbo kits. The thumbnail that I have up is a Honda D series turbo kit from CX Racing, and I've used a lot of their stuff. In fact, the first Big Bang LS motors that we did, the first two or three had the CX Racing 76 millimeter turbos. They're about 700 horsepower or so turbos. And so we utilize those. And I've utilized those on a number of things with Honda B series, K series, all kinds of stuff. But the thumbnail is a kit that they offered. And we put it on a D16 Honda. And the question is, for a lot of people, we get this all the time because it's hard. Back in the day when we were growing up and in the performance industry, turbo stuff was expensive. And eventually we transitioned into the point where there were lots and lots of turbo things available so that you could do it inexpensively. The question is, do they work? So do kits like this cast turbo manifold, inexpensive turbo, and they had the aluminum tubing, this thing had an intercooler and all kinds of stuff. So it's a complete kit and very, very inexpensive. This was pre-COVID, so a lot less expensive then than things are now, but they're, relatively speaking, they're still inexpensive. The question is, and I get asked this all the time, do these cheap turbo kits actually work? And the answer is both yes and no. And for a variety of different reasons. That particular turbo kit that we ran from CX Racing on that Civic worked fantastic. It did things that honestly I didn't expect, because there's a number of things to think about. The first thing I would say is, if you are looking at some of these kits, obviously you want to size the turbo for whatever your desired power output is. So don't get a 1,000 horsepower turbo for your D series Civic. One, it's probably not going to fit there. It's wholly unnecessary. And it's not going to be responsive. So get a realistic kind of turbo. But when you're looking at the kit, look how complete it is. And this is the case whether it's for a Honda or whatever it is, a 5-liter Mustang or Camaro or whatever the kit is. You want to look at something also that's very important. We'll get into whether or not the individual components are high quality or that kind of stuff. But one of the things that you need to look at, and this is particularly the case of the Honda stuff, is it had a lot of things. It had a turbo, it had a good manifold, it had a wastegate, it had an intercooler, it had the tubing. A lot of times they even had exhaust down pipes from the thing to connect it to some kind of exhaust. And like I said, it had the discharge side of it, had the intercooler. You could route all the aluminum tubing, couplers, all that stuff. So in that sense, the turbo kit portion of it was very complete. Here's why a lot of guys blew their motors up with those Honda kits. Is because there was no form of tuning. There was no, even a rudimentary FMU that raises the fuel pressure under boost so the injectors supply more fuel because of the added fuel pressure. There wasn't even that. And a lot of guys didn't do that. They just hooked the turbo kit up and went out and nailed the throttle. And they had enough fuel to supply the stock NA motor and not enough fuel to supply the turbo motor. And also, they didn't have any change in timing. So they had not enough fuel, full timing from the factory ECU that still thought that the thing was like NA, if they tricked the map sensor, which was necessary to bleed the signal to the factory map sensor. And they ended up blowing the motors up. Not because the turbo kit was bad, because the tuning was bad. So the turbo kit isn't responsible for that. But it is something to think about. If you go and get a turbo kit with a manifold and headers and all that stuff, and a turbo and wastegates and an intercooler and all that, you're still not there. It's like buying a cam kit, from richardholdnerperformance.com. I'm going to get a low buck truck cam, but then I'm not going to give it the necessary fuel because the camshaft wants to add 60 horsepower or more. But when you add that much airflow and it's going to want to make that much power, you have to have the fuel. So in these Honda kits with no additional fuel and all the timing, they're definitely going to blow themselves up. So if you're going to do that, make sure you have the ability to tune it. You're going to need bigger injectors. You're going to need a bigger fuel pump, and you're going to need some way to have this thing have the right amount of fuel delivered to it, and the right timing curve delivered to it to take advantage of what the power output or additional power output is supplied by this inexpensive turbo kit. The turbo kit's going to do the thing that it's supposed to do, but you have to make sure that at 7 pounds or 10 pounds or 15 pounds, how much ever boost you're going to run, that all the other things, particularly the tune, is there. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter if it's a good turbo or a good intercooler or a good wastegate. You're going to have the tune to make it do the things that you want it to do, whether it's a Honda or an LS or a Mustang or whatever it is. Make sure that you have that, because it's very, very important. Now we can talk about, okay, well, what about, okay, I have like when we ran this kit on the Civic, we had either Chrome or Honda on it, so we could dial in the air fuel, and Ernie back then with Westech was able to dial it in. He could make it, 11.5 to 1. He could take away timing, and then we could run the boost up, and it did, and it added power, and it was magic, and everything was fantastic. So that setup worked very well. So then the question becomes, okay, I have that part secured. I have the ability to tune it. I have LS1 edits or HP tuners or whatever for my LS, and I'm going to put a kit on. It's inexpensive. Now, what about the quality of the thing? So like on the Civic, one of the things that I was worried about, and I'm still worried about on a turbo setup, I'm actually less worried about the turbo part of it than I am about the wastegate part of it. The wastegate is a critical element to controlling the boost. And I have in the past got inexpensive wastegates from turbo kits or just the wastegate itself. And they've said, okay, this is a 10-pound wastegate. What that means in wastegate speak is that it has a spring in it on the diaphragm that will open up the wastegate at 10 pounds. Unfortunately, just saying that it's a 10-pound wastegate or that it'll open up at 10 pounds doesn't mean that it actually will open up at 10 pounds. And a lot of them, I haven't ever had any of these inexpensive wastegates open up too early. They've all opened up too late. They weren't 7-pound springs or 10-pound springs. They were 15 or 20-pound springs. And I don't know if they didn't have a way of measuring their springs when they put them on there, or if they were just arbitrarily calling them 10-pound springs. But a lot of them were way too much. And it's more boost than we wanted. Like if we put a 7-pound spring in there and then we put a bleed valve in it, a manual controller, then we can get more than 7 pounds. But you can never get less than 7 pounds. So we don't immediately want 15 pounds of boost to start things off with, because we want to run the NA motor, make sure it's okay, put the turbo on, run low boost, have it be safe, put lots of fuel in it, take the timing out of it, and then sneak up on the boost. And if we eventually want to run 15 pounds, we can. But if a wastegate doesn't give you that option, that's definitely something to be mindful of. So if you put one of these kits on and you put the wastegate on, you might be able to check it with a Mighty Vac and find out where the thing opens at, just to make sure that it is a 7-pound and not a 70-pound spring or one that never opens up. You want to make sure that, and that's very, very important. And that's something I have run across on these turbo kits. The other consideration is a lot of guys were like, oh yeah, all of that offshore stuff is junk. That's absolutely not the case. I've had actually nothing but luck with a lot of this stuff. There are lots of things that I won't buy from this inexpensive grouping of stuff, but there are lots of things that I will. I've had really good luck with the turbos. I've had really good luck with intercoolers, really good luck with intercooler piping and couplers and all that stuff. So there isn't universally it's bad, and there also isn't universally it's good. You have to be smart enough and pick and choose the things that work and the things that don't. That Honda kit, that Honda turbo kit that we tried, fantastic. It worked flawlessly. The wastegate worked like we thought it was going to. It opened up when we wanted it to. We were able to, like I said, we put big injectors in it, and we were able to control the timing and the air fuel and make it work like it was supposed to. But otherwise, the mechanical part of it, the intercooler, the front mount bolted on, it did good. We had the tubing on it. We had a discharge that we ran. We actually ran an open pipe on the testing, just so that we didn't have to worry about going through the stock exhaust, which this Civic had on it, because we would have restricted it, and that wouldn't have been good. And we wanted to do the testing to see how much power this thing would make. And this thing, the D16 eventually made, I think it eventually made over 300 horsepower when we were all done with it. So it did good, but it's pretty easy to add, 100 horsepower with a turbo kit on there, and 100 horsepower and lots of torque also makes the thing feel so much better. I mean, like any turbo kit on any motor that you put on there. It's like nothing but fantastic. And once you get it working right, but you have to make sure that you do get it working right. So, so the next thing would be turbos. Like I said, I've had really good luck with them. And I think I've only ever had one turbo go bad that I know of. And that was long ago. And it wasn't one of these CX racings. In fact, the turbos that we ran on the 2010 first Big Bang motor are still alive and working. Now, they haven't been driving in a vehicle since then, but we've used them for, I'm sure, 20 or 30 dyno sessions on various kinds of motors. And they've been kicked around the shop and sat after being used and stuff. And so they've, as far as I'm concerned, it's way more than I would expect out of a turbo that was, at the time, a few $100s or whatever. So I think that we've had really good success with that. And there's lots of things like that out there. I've heard, I've heard horror stories from guys where they've run some and not had them work. And that's certainly a possibility. But given the choice between going to the wrecking yard and trying to find a turbo, like a whole set or something off of a turbo diesel something or other, or just getting one of these inexpensive ones from Max Speeding or CX Racing or any of those guys, I would do that. I would choose that every time over going to the wrecking yard and getting a turbo. So those tend to work fairly well. But like I said, you have to make sure that there are parts of it that, like I said, check the wastegate, make sure that that's okay. The exhaust manifolds, especially if they're cast like this Civic one, was fine. If you look at the photo, you'll see it. There are a couple of things that I don't like about this. One is that, and this is, it almost has to be like this, at least in that D-Series Civic application. The opening of the turbo is right behind the fan wash from the radiator. So we had the hood open, and ducting a section of 3-inch or 4-inch tubing from the inlet of that turbo over to the fender well would, for me, for driving around, would definitely be a must. With the hood open, not as big a deal. A lot of times we just stick a fan on top of it to get all of the hot fan wash away from it. But cold air would definitely be a plus. The turbo position I liked. It was elevated enough that we had a good drain from the turbo back into the pan. Like I said, the wastegate worked on some of them. On some of these kits, make sure to look at them. I remember the early drag kits, like for these Hondas, had the wastegate mounted to basically what was one exhaust section from one cylinder going into the common exhaust plenum where you mount the turbo, and it didn't control the boost very well. So we always had issues with rising boost curves because it was evacuating, the exhaust energy and flow more from that one cylinder than all the rest of them. So we just basically always had a rising boost curve for that setup. So make sure that the wastegate is positioned properly on the exhaust manifold. If that has a casting, if that's part of if it has a provision for the wastegate cast into the manifold itself, just make sure that it's positioned properly, because it's something to consider. Sometimes you have to do that, for fitment issues. But if you don't have, like I said, wastegate control for a turbo thing, kind of mandatory, just like the tuning, also kind of mandatory. So I've had really good luck with a lot of these things. I haven't tested all of them. Obviously, I haven't tested lots of 5-liter Mustang stuff and Camaro stuff and things like that. And because I don't normally test kits, but since we were running this vehicle on the chassis dyno, we were doing a back-to-back on the chassis dyno, we were able to do this kit. In fact, we did this D-Series. We did a B-Series non-VTEC Integra. And then I think a Mazda Speed 3 we did, and a Supra, and a few different ones. And actually all of them worked out fairly well, again, because we had, tuning available to us to make sure that if this thing wanted to add 7 or 8 or 10 pounds of boost, that we had enough fuel going to it. And then the other thing to think about when you're doing this, it has nothing to do with whether or not these are good turbo kits, but because we ran into this, make sure that you have enough clutch to handle the extra power. Adding an extra 100 horsepower, 100 foot-pounds of torque is all well and good, but if you have a stock clutch in there that says, look, I'm used to making like 90 to 100 at the tire, and now that we're making double that, it's just not going to work for me anymore, especially if it's an old clutch that had been around, had some miles on it. So let's see. Offshore. Okay, have you ever purchased offshore turbos, kits, or other performance products for your builds? Let's see if we can do this for any of your builds. Nailed it right at 100. Have you ever purchased offshore turbos, kits, or other performance products for any of your builds? Let's see. I have. I'm a yes. I'm a definite yes. Lots of that stuff. Yeah, but for how long? Like I said, we've made them work a long time. Whales in the house. What's going on, Neil Jet? Yes, they are just horrible sometimes and not a clean bolt on. I have had that. We have tried to run turbo stuff like kits on the dyno and had them not fit on the motor the way they should have. I remember a 5-liter kit. I think it was a CX Racing deal too. The 5-liter kit interfered with where the factory oil filter is. And so having hot exhaust next to the oil filter, not cool. So we had to either do a remote or maybe put a shorty filter or something on it. So there are things like that. Like fitment is a kind of a critical issue too. Like share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that. You watch Calvin? Yeah, Calvin does good stuff. Cheap garbage turbo like my On 3. I don't know if I've run any On 3 stuff. Tuning cheap builds is a nightmare, but there are some things that can be budget branded if you stay conservative. It was a sorcery. It was a torque. It's sorcery. What a torque converter does. Got to have tunes. Can the stock 0411 PCM be tuned for turbo use? It has been tuned for the cam swap. Yes, it can. Go to Sloppy Mechanics, and Matt has tunes that you can just get from the cabinet. I'll proceed with turbo plans. What's 10 or 20 pounds among friends? Yeah. When you see the boost gauge go, ooh, that gets scary. Mighty Vac or Electrolux, a Hoover. I always test my wastegate with a handheld pump so I know what it's doing. I've had name brand pumps that don't open at the wrong PSI. The other thing that happens that I like to do on wastegates is before I run them again, because we'll run them and do whatever turbo nonsense we're doing, and then take them off, and then they might sit for a month, maybe 2 months. And then I go to run them again, and you look in there and you're like, the valve doesn't want to actuate very well because they get buildup of stuff on them. I mean, let's face it, it's a terrible environment, and they get all kinds of contamination in there. And so what I do is I go in and I put oil on them, and then I make sure, take the wastegate apart, take the spring off, and then I move the valve back and forth so it moves freely. And then I put it back together, put the spring on and all that, just to make sure that, because what can happen is the spring can allow it to open up, but if there's something stuck on the shaft, and so the valve can't go up into its little receiver deal, into its guide, because something is stopping it from actuating, then it won't open up. And it's not the fault of the spring. It's just that the wastegate's stuck. So have you tested cheap ones with an internal wastegate? I have. We've run some internal wastegate stuff. In fact, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, that one on the one on the Civic was an external gate. I think that the B series was also, but we have run internally gated stuff. It's just that those are usually for like a lower horsepower deal, because the wastegate opening in those is usually a lot smaller than the external wastegate is. Thinking the higher the back pressure, the lower the advertised boost occurs, because both the exhaust pressure and the boost referencing trying to overcome the spring. Yeah, if you have back pressure, it will try to open the gate. And so it will open up at a lower boost pressure in the manifold. I'm going to try that. And the way that you get around that is with a boost controller. I'm going to a 3-port boost controller, because you want something going to the top also. I'm going to try the VS Racing 7875. That should work good. If that turbo is in your power range, just send it. What could go wrong? Exactly. Cheap turbo setups. Because I've seen people, and I've probably done this in the past too, where we hook the wastegate reference line to the wrong side. And if you hook it up to the top, it stops it from opening. And then you get all the boost, which is really bad down low, because then it'll make a lot more boost down low than it will at the top. Cheap turbo setups definitely work. I've experienced turbocharging on our Holden Commodores that come with an RB30 engine. A lot of the time setups that were very crude just work. So you had NA RB30s, right? And then you put turbos on them. That's cool. That's the big block RB. Even the max speeding rod ones. I've run max speeding turbos before, and all the ones I've run so far have worked. I'm looking forward to it. Going in my 6.0, rolling in my 6.0. VL Commodore motors that you got to drive had a horrible off-idle stumble. Gonna get a 125 AR for the 6-liter. Richard, are you still selling 179 220 X cams? I need another one. No, I don't. I've never sold. Oh, are you talking about? Is that the exhaust duration one? I have 2 cams. I have the low buck truck cam, which is a 212, 220 something, and then a truck plus is a 219, 225, I think. But they're not 179 anymore. They're 199, but they are on sale with spring packages now. So go to Rust Hoarder Garage. We have a store now. RichardHolderPerformance.com, .gov.org. So just go there, and then you can order what you need. Or multiple pieces of junk Humphrey turbo kits, and they'll never do that again. Uh-oh. Got some real nice DNA shorty headers for $70 shipped in the day, like 2017. I've used the DNA long tube headers, well, long-ish. I call them medium length headers that we use for the turbo stuff. And those are the ones that we use for the Big Bang motors. I want to get some Holley ones if they even have them anymore. I had, but it was back in my Mitsubishi when I had it. Are we talking like offshore, like China stuff? Well, you could get it from Germany or Sweden or England, but I don't think that those are going to be low dollar ones. My $206 eBay S475 works good. That's awesome. That's a big turbo, especially for $200. Not cool figuratively or literally. I had good luck with cheap turbos, especially S480 turbos with quality-ish intercoolers like Treadstone and Turbo Smart or Forge wastegates. Turbo Smart stuff is good, especially their wastegates. Turbo Smart stuff is not cheap though. But the air-to-air intercoolers are all the ones that I've tried have worked really well. It's just sizing them and finding, a big enough area to put them in. What can we do to prevent catastrophe if a cheap turbo decides to go? Well, having an intercooler is a really good idea because it catches a lot of the particles. And I haven't seen turbos destroy themselves in a manner. Usually they start smoking really bad, like the seals go bad. I haven't seen wheels come off and trim themselves that often. The only time I have seen that is when people don't bolt the housing on. Because a lot of times when you get a turbo and you put it on your vehicle, you have to unbolt the housing, either the exhaust side to rotate the center section or the compressor side, so that you can orient things and get it aiming where you need to aim it to mount your discharge tube, to make your downpipe, to get the turbo positioned properly, like I said, so that the drain and the feed are in the right spot. So sometimes when people don't tighten those back up and they run it, and then the compressor housing or the exhaust housing becomes loose enough, that you can cock it a little bit, and then it can trim the wheel, and you could send wheel particles through there. I bought an HX35 copy for a draw-through carb 5.3, modified the wastegate with a Subaru diaphragm, made 10 pounds till the turbo had a lot of shaft play, probably from being unbalanced. A guy I work with got an eBay kit for his Subaru. The turbo fell apart after a few thousand miles. I can't speak on the quality of the install. I know oiling can be an issue. Oiling is a critical thing, obviously. And what I like to do on any of these turbos, any turbo that I put on, I always put oil in the turbo and spin the impeller, with my finger and spin it around so that the bearings are all lubricated before I do startup. BSR 7875 on my 4.8 liter, 55 Buick, cool. eBay headers, homemade hot side, cold side. Haven't blown it up yet. Nice. Yep, Robert doing it. Hey, dogs, how about if we don't bark? I guess that's a no. The only turbo I've ever run is on my Firebird. It's a Huron Speed kit with a VS 7875. Yeah, that works good. Friend of mine who's into Hondas often had a holiday to Florida with an extra suitcase and fill it with Honda tuning parts. Cheaper than shipping to the UK. RichardHolderPerformance.com. Yes, they were NA RB30s that we turbocharged. The Commodore, they came in as best described as similar to what a four-door Fox body would look like. Okay, so like a four-door Granada maybe, or a Fairmont? Yeah, Rust Hoarder we got. Yeah, just go to RichardHolderPerformance.com. The local turbo guru that's been building for decades said the cheap stuff is built in the same factory as the mid-range one. He just balances and cleans them off. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. And a lot of them they've been building them for a long time. So they work really well. I've rebuilt brand name turbos with China parts. And they're more reliable than new most times. Nice. What size turbo would you use on a Honda B18 or B20 non-VTEC? You should just pick the turbo based on your power size. I mean, your power desired power level. There's lots of T3, T4 stuff that's available out there. I mean, if you only want, like 250 horsepower or something, there's a lot of just T3 stuff that will work. I plan on getting your Truck Plus cam, spring kit, 80-pound injectors from you, and a VS Racing 7875 to start with. What size fuel pump? Tomlinson, we're going to have fuel pumps up on the channel or up on the store pretty quickly. We're looking at the probably something like the Hellcat pumps, the 525s. Currently using a set of Molnar connecting rods, which are forged in wherever, and they finish in the USA, like Eagle and Scat in the G10. Molnar makes rods for that G10, or did you have them made custom? 20% of that cost may have been just for shipping. All of my stuff is Turbo Smart. The Turbo Smart stuff I like. I like Marty over there, and they do good stuff. I've used their wastegates almost exclusively on all of the stuff I do anymore. Make internally wastegated knockoff Garrett 42 series and S400 board units that gets you to 70 plus millimeter inducer range. What's the flow rate of the internal wastegate though? It's because it's always limited by packaging. If you can't make the flow orifice inside with the valve in it as big as you can a 60 millimeter external gate, that's what I'm talking about, is that sometimes you have control issues. It's possible to run a turbo on a non-power adder throttle body EFI that doesn't have a boost reference. Yes, as long as you have the ability to tune it. And how is the fuel being supplied to that? You probably are going to need to boost reference whatever regulator is supplying fuel to that, just so that you have fuel pressure go up in relation to boost. need to buy some new iPhones directly from those Foxconn forced labor buildings instead of greedy Apple. 300-ish, I've just seen a bunch of different AR and trims. The AR stuff is going to make a minimal difference in what you're doing. It's the last thing to consider. You can consider turbo size first. Would a 38 millimeter wastegate be okay for a GT3582 turbo for a 5.2 engine size? Are you just going to run one of them on a 5.2? If so, I would put something bigger on it. Exciting about the fuel pumps. Can't wait. Hope you can become a one-stop shop for affordable parts. That's the goal. I want to make sure that we test the stuff, because all the things on the store right now are all things that I've tested. And so I want to test those pumps too and make sure that since they're OEM stuff, I don't have real fear for that. But I want to make sure that that's going to be good. The Hellcat 525 works good with the 7875. They're dropping hats that hold 2 or 3 pumps now. Yeah, and the thing with the drop-in stuff is that it would be application specific. So we want to try to have like more of a universal thing. If you're using a positive displacement blower, is it always better to run bigger at lower speeds? To run the blower bigger, you mean? The amount of boost the thing provides is going to be a function of the blower size and the blower speed relative to the displacement, but I would argue more the NA power output of the combination you're running it on. So you can adjust it with both things. You can adjust it with speed, pulley size, and you can adjust it with displacement. I like the idea of having 2 pumps in case one fails. Will you ever sell Honda parts on your website? Probably not. I mean, pumps will work on the Honda, turbos will work on the Honda, and if we get intercooler cores, those will work for a Honda, but probably not Honda specific stuff. I have a Borg S480 with excessive shaft play after 800 miles on a Stroker 5.3. Would a turbo used in a draw-through configuration be more prone to premature failure? I think it would. I think it's going to be hard on the... I'm assuming that it already has a carbon seal in it so that you don't have to worry about the fuel contamination on the seals and wearing out the bearings. But if you have that, I also think that the impeller is not going to last as long. Stock 4.8, 4060, Gen 2, 7875, a little laggy. Yeah, 7875 on a 4.8 is going to be laggy. Stalls 1800 and won't make any boost foot braking. Are you trying to make sure that you can make 1,000 horsepower? If you're not doing that, then I would go down in turbo size. I think you need a Super Richie turbo kit. We will have that. We will have turbos. And like I said, maybe intercooler cores, but not kits. The other thing I'm looking into are some kind of universal or generic hot sides. So a single exhaust manifold on one side that we can run the stock exhaust manifold over to the other side, that a guy can do that. I don't want to do kits because kits are going to be too application specific. But if we did that and then I could test it, make sure that it fits on my truck, then it could be used for truck applications, there's way more trucks than there are everything else. Richard, you should do a 6 series just based on the best running boosted application, not necessarily the most power. Just get to run. I don't know what your definition is the best running boosted application. I have 6-liter stuff up there that goes from 400 or 500 horsepower up to 1,500 horsepower. So I think I've covered the whole range of what a guy would want to do with a 6-liter. They make a G13B rod, and that's what I'm using. It's the same as a turbo G10 as a non-turbo, just a press pin. Okay. So you just have to get a piston to work with that then, right? Borg S478 and bigger use billet wheels. The S475 with the cast wheel. Run a bigger blower with lower shaft speed to keep temps down. I don't plan on trying to make 500 horsepower that the stock blower makes on the Land Rover. Do you have a restrictor oil supply? BS Racing said the same thing. They recommend a 7265. Yeah, you want to optimize the turbo sizing for what the desired usage is. If you're not interested in making 1,000 horsepower, don't have 1,000 horsepower turbo unless later on you're planning on doing it, and then you have to deal with whatever the response rate issue is. I can make 400 with a M90, but a turned down TVS 1900 seems like a better idea. What are you trying to make 400 with, Jason? What motor is this? Super Richie parts list, 7875, cam, injectors, fuel pump, disclaimer, some assembly required. Well, we're already going to put together a package like that. We already have all of those things on the store right now, just minus the turbo. We're just sourcing the turbo right now. We really, I think I've already got that and the fuel pump. I just want to make sure that they're right, and then we'll package it together. I'm running an in the tank 255, feeding a Bosch 044 in a surge tank. No worries about sucking air under acceleration. I like the surge tank idea. We did that on our road race cars. If you want universal parts in the store, a surge tank and matching pump works well. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, we used that on a road race car, and it was really, really good. Mercedes V8. Oh, okay. An M90 will easily do 400 horsepower. Does that Mercedes V8, is that one of the ones that they offered a compressor on already? Could you use could you take the other stuff from the other motor and make it work? Have you ever purchased offshore turbo kits or other performance products for any of your builds? 57% are yes, 43% are no. A 225 horsepower Mercedes V8. What year is that? That's got to be an older one then, right? Is it a 4.3 liter one? 4.3 liter V8. Must be a squirrel outside. And with those inexpensive turbos, if you need more power, you just add another turbo, right? Yeah, Scott, we're working on links to send people to videos that have the products that we tested. That's all part of the plan. I don't know about wastegates. All of the stuff that I've used has been the Turbo Smart stuff. I don't know if we'll carry the Turbo Smart stuff or not. Maybe. It's a vintage car, single cam, M117. Okay. Are you guys going to make an all-out LS cam? Well, we had one up there, and we're probably going to take it down. We had the Brian Tooley, the Stage 4 LS3 cam, which is about like one of the biggest cams that you could fit in there and still use stock piston to valve clearance. But nobody is interested in that cam. I think we've only got one or two people even look at it. So it's not something that's popular, at least not for our store. China turbos are a form of currency. You can trade them for car parts. 5.6 liter. Okay. What year is that, Jason? Is that like the old 560 SL motor? Needs a Super Richie name. Yeah, Super Richie's not going to be part of it. Followed enough to understand I'll easily make 400 horsepower, but the car is getting thrashed, and I'm concerned about heat soak and just creating heat because it's going to be spun so hard. Yeah, if it was 225 and you're trying to make 400, you're going to be spinning it at least a little bit. It would be easier to. I mean, it will easily do that. We've made 400 a lot with the 3800s, and I think it'd be easier for you to do it with a bigger motor, and it would do it at a lower boost level. I think. What do we do on the 4.8? There. Dyno results. Cathedral port. Supercharged. File. Test description. What pulley were we at? Oh, that made over 500, but that was with a 2.6 pulley. That's pretty small. That's spinning it pretty fast. Did you ever come to a conclusion as to why the 4.3 didn't respond to long tubes the way most engines do? I didn't. I want to retest that. We love max speeding rods for motorcycles. I've seen them take 400 horsepower, which is about 250 foot-pounds of torque on a 4-cylinder Hayabusa. Nice. With lots of RPM there, right? Like, what's the RPM on that Hayabusa motor? Can a cam swap be done with the motor still in the vehicle? Yeah, guys do that all the time. Smooth the radiator, transcooler. Yep. Yeah, they just get the radiator and stuff out of the way. 500 horsepower, not 400. Okay. .560 SL motor. Okay. Going in my 450 SLC drift car. So I can easily make that with an LS. Just put the motor in with a cam. But still, that's cool. So how are you going to adapt the blower to that? Are you making your own manifold for that? 11.5 to 12,000 on a high boost. That's good. That, to me, that's way more impressive for a connecting rod than power output is. Because snatch loads on a rod at RPM are way worse than boost is. I mean, we did 1,540 horsepower with stock powdered metal rods, and so that a connecting rod at RPM, I think, is way more impressive. 12,000 RPM. Imagine if a 12,000 RPM LS motor. Of JD pistons I custom made, but could use the 88 and up Canadian turbo Firefly pistons. For using the pre-88 Mark I engine, the factory turbo pistons will work. I have those. I have the factory pistons, but I also have the Weiscos, and then I have the Potter rods that we did too for that motor. Future planning as I button up my stock 331 stroker, cast steel crank, forged rods, pistons with ring gap for boost, 11R 190 heads, 10.5 to 1, 218 T24. So that's going to be a good combination for the Ford. What intake is on it? Not sure if it needs boost, but if it does, I guess with that combo, I can only ever want to see a max of 8 pounds with a good tune before my block is unhappy. I don't know that I would worry about the block. We've run combinations like that way higher than you're talking about. But yeah, 8 or 10 pounds would be fine with that. It would make good power. RPM air gap. Okay. So you'll be doing a blow through carbureted deal. Almost time for full throttles and full bottles. Are you talking about race season coming up? Going in a 65 Mustang. I think that motor in a 66 Mustang, just NA, is going to be a lot of fun. But I mean, boosted, it's just more fun. A Vortec on that would be good, like I ran in my Mustang. And they have kits for that will fit and certainly fit in that chassis. Torque Storm has Mustang stuff as well. I like the blower kits where you don't have to put holes in the pan anymore for a drain hole. I mean, everybody did that for years and years and years, but the self-contained blower stuff is kind of nice. What is it you guys are barking at? What's all that noise down there? What is it? Come here. What is it? Is it a squirrel or something? Is that what you guys are barking at? Oh, what is it? What is that? What? I know. It's so exciting. Where's your brother? I bet your brother's going to come up now, huh? He hears you getting pet, huh? He does. Huh? Where's Bruno at? Where's your brother? Huh? Where's he at? We don't care. We don't care where he is. Huh? What are you doing? I know. You're a good boy, huh? You're a good boy. I know. When the engine starts to feel tame, that's when you add boost. It does. It is. It's like it changes. It's like a whole new motor. Could you do a video one day in depth about cams, heads, and how things work the way they do? Like lower lift and duration makes power and smaller ports as well, but how does all this stuff work? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. I have lots and lots of videos up on stock heads versus other heads, so it kind of shows what heads do. Lots of videos up on stock cams versus any number of hundreds of other kinds of cams that do what you're saying. So I'm not sure that that's something that I haven't covered already. The LS live and in person. So what kind of timing are you putting on your test engines and how is the drivability? Are you talking about an LS motor? If you are, then the LS motors tend to run to make the most peak power on the engine dyno at 29 degrees total at the horsepower peak. We run the motors cold, so they'll take that timing on 91. And then they have less timing, obviously, at the torque peak, and then less timing below that. So we put in a curve. And the way that I figure out how much timing the motor tells us. I don't tell the motor. The motor tells us how much timing it wants. And that's really a function of the chamber design and the piston. But what we do is put in low timing and then make a run, and then add 2 degrees and then make a run. And if we didn't get any gain down low, because this is what happens, it wants more timing at higher engine speeds. If we didn't get any gain by going up 2 degrees, then we keep it where it was. And then eventually we just build a curve, and then it's going to be near 29 degrees at the horsepower peak. It's going to be like that on almost every LS we've ever run. Boost changes you. That's what you want to do for sure. Jake says hi to the dogs. Yeah. What are you guys doing, huh? What? Come here. What are you doing? Is that Bruno? What are you doing, huh? Get up here and say hello, huh? Who's that? Huh? Who's that? Say hi. I know. You're a good boy. Did you guys see something out there? Do I need to go let you out there so you can chase it? There's a big yawn, huh? What? I know. What? Pet me some more, huh? Pet me some more, huh? I know. Oh, no. I know. Go get your brother. Go get your brother. Either a full custom intake with brick or a remote mount, air to water, still on the fence Yeah, that's good stuff. Either one of those will work. Camera recommendation on 94 Bronco. Is everything else stock? If it is, and you want a stock converter and stuff, pick one of the smaller comp cams, like a 258 Extreme Energy. If it's a hydraulic 94, is 94 hydraulic roller? I think that's right on the fence. How can we lobby to get more E85 at the pump? 15 minutes south of Nashville in the area, and arguably more performance cars than any other area of my state, yet no E85. Yeah, I don't know what the rhyme and reason for them choosing areas for that. Team Righteous. Well, maybe if you come here and ask specific questions, I can answer specific questions about it. I just don't have a feel for what you're asking about, for what things you're trying to figure out that you don't know right now from information that's already available up there. Every town surrounding mine has it though, but 30 miles to drive to get E85. Yeah. What horsepower range would twin GT35s be good for? They'll make 1,000 and might do a little more than that. TVS 1900 on the Jag and Land Rover would be not too much of an adapter situation since it has the intercoolers built into the top side of the manifold. Some short runner to the head port. Okay. Yeah, if you can build all that, you're good. The Midwest has E85. So do you think that that's a function of farming being more prevalent there? 85 non-existent in the UK. That's a bummer. Yeah. Almost stock right now, but looking to get heads and cam. It's actually a 92 that I converted to MAF with a 94 harness. So 92 is going to be non-roller then. But they have that same camshaft in a flat tappet. 6A and return fuel line wouldn't be big enough for 1,000 horsepower, would it? I'm worried about it. I'm worried about the return line size for like idle and cruise more than I am for under power, because under power you're using a bunch of the fuel. It's not as big of an issue. But I think I would put a bigger return line on it at 1,000 horsepower. Because what pump do you have? Because you're gonna have the pump's going to feed more than 1,000 horsepower. Because otherwise there would be no reason to put that pump on there. You don't want it to make 1,000 horsepower and have 1,000 horsepower pump on it. You're going to have a 12 or 13 or 1,500 horsepower pump on it. I'm working with a guy to manufacture a Hellcat blower for 8.1 intakes. Might be a possibility for us big block guys. That'd be cool. Oklahoma refined a lot of fuel. I would just use the Wiseco and Potter rods. Good rod bolts too. Yeah, it has good rod bolts in it already. Yeah, no, I'm the ones I'm going to use are that. I was just curious about what you did. 525 pump. Yeah, Jordan, if you have to take a bunch of timing away and a bunch of boost away and you can't make a whole bunch of power, then you don't need all the forger stuff, right? It's not even necessary. What's the most power I can make on pump gas? Less than if you had good fuel on it. Have you ever purchased offshore turbos or kits or other performance products for any of your builds? 54 to 46 on the yes side. Paid $1.89 for E85 last week. Have pumps 3 miles in every direction. That's nice. Particularly if you have a ZL1. They definitely respond to that. Danny, are you making 1,000 horsepower on gas or are you doing it on E85? If you're doing it on E85, you're going to need more than one of those pumps. We also upgrade the stop valve springs, give up with stock cam around 7,000. Well, I want to put a different cam in it because it needs more camshaft because it will make more power with more camshaft. And definitely springs would be required. Which is better, an electric water pump or a standard one on the street engine? I would run a standard one, not an electric water pump for street use. I want to do a 5.3 or a 6.0 for a sandrail. Do they not sell pure gasoline, or is it all cut with alcohol in most states? I don't think you're going to have anything that doesn't have ethanol in it. Any difference between E85 and E85R? I don't know what E85R is, so I don't have an answer to that. Yeah, Danny, if you're going to run E85, you're going to need more fuel flow than that 525 will do, particularly if you're running a higher pressure. Quinn, yes, I have had nothing but good luck with cheap turbos. But they're all not great, and they're all not bad. The answer is it depends. Pure gas. I want the pure stuff, man. I want my gasoline uncut. Near. See, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's actually happening or not. Dashboard, yo. As far as longevity goes, probably better to get a name brand. I don't know what name brand. I don't know what constitutes a name brand thing for you. I have never had a problem with any of the CX Racing or DNA or any of these other turbos that I've gotten. They've all worked and all are still working today. So I haven't had problems with that. I'm not driving them every day. We're using them as dyno test things. On the cams, my main thing I don't know is how valve timing affects things more than anything. I guess the lift duration part I already understand, just timing and LSA, intake center line. So do you not understand what those things are? Do you not understand what lobe separation angle is or intake center line is? You're on any of those things, not lift so much, but on any of those things, duration, lobe separation angle, intake center line, you're affecting when the intake valve is opening or the exhaust valve is opening or either one of them are closing. And those things affect power production, particularly how much power you're making, but also where you're wanting to make power. Oklahoma sells pure gasoline. Do you have a recommendation for forward-facing manifolds, cast or stainless or stock? No, I don't have a recommendation. My recommendation is that you find something that fits around the other things that you're trying to fit it around, power steering, air conditioning, whatever you have, alternator, and then that you get all the exhaust to the turbo. Some areas get 100% gasoline because they claim anything less will damage old farm equipment and make it run bad. So they're saying that the ethanol part of it hurts. Are these all leaded vehicles or something? Pure is good for mowers and yard equipment. So ethanol work clog the setting over long. Oh, if it's from sitting long periods of time. It's possible to use C85 without a tune specifically for C85 if the vehicle is equipped with an E-sensor. I would think so. I would think that would be okay if you have a flex fuel sensor. My 99 3800 V6 Camaro is waiting. Does it have a supercharger on it? Do you know if there is a mechanical drawing of the Holly Ram intake lid brick bolt pattern? That would be my ideal situation for a custom intake. I don't know. Does Holly have that on their site? I think about water methanol. If I didn't have access to E85, tuning becomes more of a hassle with water methanol injection. So, Andy, are you going to put a turbo on that 3800? We know that they respond well to that, like everyone does. That's why I'm asking about pure gasoline. So, what is your question about pure gasoline? Do you think it's better somehow? I would like to see data that suggests that the 10% alcohol content has a negative effect on longevity. I agree with the storage thing, that I think that it would be more prone to going bad. But I don't know, like, how much worse is it? No one here except for me and like 3 other people have gas-powered lawn equipment. What are they using for their lawn equipment? Are they using it for, like, I don't have gas-powered trimmers and stuff, but I have the lawnmowers gas-powered though. Alcohol is bad on older injectors. What does it do to your injector? Yeah, Andy, cheap turbos are good. We decided that that's the thing. Everyone has electric lawnmowers. It is quieter. I think my neighbor across the street has an electric one. I've got a Honda lawnmower, and so until the Honda lawnmower goes out, that's when I might think about getting an electric one. But it's a Honda lawnmower, so it's never going to go out. I've even let it sit out in the rain, which I shouldn't do. Ran E10 on my son's stock 78 Datsun fuel injection. I'm considering a battery-powered lawnmower. They do have serious batteries in them, and they have like multiple packs, I guess, like throwing a new mag in it. I think some of the I think the Ryobis, the leaf blower and the hedge trimmer and the weed whacker that we have, they all share the same battery pack. So I made a rack for them to, for all the battery packs to plug them in. And a couple of the batteries now are not cooperating like they did. They seem to be selective in the battery pack that they like and stuff. So I don't know how long those battery packs the batteries themselves are supposed to last, but fix the insulation on the coil that corrodes it and causes the coil to short. How does the fuel get access to the coil? Is the injector leaking? Is that like a bad injector? On a twin turbo stock block, 700 horsepower, 454, how long would that setup last with cast heads? I don't know what you mean by how long would it last, and how would a cast head affect the longevity of anything? We have battery powered lawnmowers as well as EVs. My dad has battery powered Cobalt handheld leaf blowers, and they're nuts. I like that's my wife's favorite thing is that leaf blower, because we've got a big backyard and stuff, and so got trees all over the place, and so it's amazing. You just go out and how the yard looks new once you're blowing all the leaves out of there. The Ryobi One system, lots of tools and batteries. E10 made me have to put a new fuel pressure regulator in my Honda. CBR F4I every few weeks. Really? Scott's out of here. I just need to know who I am. Do I have to arm wrestle to get E85 in Franklin? I don't know if that's I don't know if it's an arm wrestling deal, or I don't know if that's part of the sign up procedure or not. But on that note, it is time to go. But I will be back tonight. So I will see you guys all tonight. If you haven't, please go check out richardholderperformance.com for all your, well, not all, some of your performance LS needs. Soon to be all, though.